In case you missed it, Sony reportedly spent close to $200 million on Concord, a game barely anyone was asking for. This is emphatically punctuated by the memory that they canceled development of The Last of Us Factions, a game which many people were actually hoping for. It's shocking to even be going over this today, but it's happening. After close to 6 years of development, PlayStation's new live service IP, Concord, is shutting down after a lifespan of 15 days. We're actively witnessing one of the worst launches for a big budget, first-party title in gaming history. This game has been the subject of much discourse over the last month or so. The beta was a well-publicized debacle with extraordinarily low player numbers. Now, after launch, the numbers and the reception hasn't gotten any better. A hero shooter launching on PlayStation and PC platforms, Concord never really showed well in marketing. The advertising was uninspired, and once people finally got a good look at it, they didn't really like what they saw. Now, it did launch fairly polished, and reportedly had some solid, albeit derivative, gameplay design. Unfortunately, that's not what really matters in today's story. Concord represents a piece of Sony's larger live service ambitions. In recent years, Sony has bet big with investments in future live service opportunities. They acquired Bungie because of Destiny's consistent success and hoped that having a studio like Bungie would also serve them well during their live service push. Integrating Bungie as a collaborative, oversight-style support studio could help coach up and provide insights for studios tackling new service-based projects. Let's not forget, Sony's margins aren't what they used to be, probably due to the rising cost of game development. PlayStation is a huge success, but the vast majority of their first-party titles are big-budget exclusives which cost a premium in production and marketing compared to how much games used to cost. Sony also realizes that the biggest cash flows in all of gaming are from service-based games. Therefore, it was in their interest to start investing and trying to find their own little slice of service-based greenbacks, so to speak. Helldivers 2 is pretty successful, but that's only one thing. Sony planned on bringing an entire roadmap of new service games over multiple years. Concord was part of that roadmap. In fact, Sony was so confident in Concord that they designed custom PS5 controllers for it, something usually reserved for premier titles or IPs, not like brand new ones. Sony even partnered with a new video game-centric TV series called Secret Level to produce a segment for Concord, instead of literally anything else in their storied history. They truly believed this was going to be one of their next big IPs. Concord's fate was as definite as its commitment to inexplicably bizarre character designs. Who would want to spend money on character skins and outfits for these characters? Goodness gracious, it astounds me. Now, bad character design is one thing. However, let's not miss the most important contributing factor to Concord's failure. People really didn't want it. There isn't a huge market demand for another hero shooter right now. In fact, the biggest reason a game like Marvel Rivals is being hyped up is largely because it features a beloved cast of superhero characters that have a huge following. People like the idea of playing as their favorite comic book character. There's a novelty element to it, which gives it a competitive advantage. They aren't all hyped up because, oh look, here's another hero shooter. The market is far more competitive now. The saturation for free-to-play and live service games has hit an all-time high. Concord launched as a first-party console exclusive hero shooter that costs $40, when everyone else is playing established live service games that are free. They cost nothing to play. Sure, there are microtransactions in a lot of those games, but the barrier to entry is far lower. So yeah, maybe charging $40 for a game most people didn't really want while launching into a crowded gaming market wasn't the best of ideas. You know what else wasn't the best of ideas for Sony? Canceling the one multiplayer game your customers were actually excited for, The Last of Us Factions. Remember that game? Where you had Neil Druckmann coming out on stage to announce an ambitious multiplayer spinoff from the supremely popular Last of Us franchise? And this was a game that was supposed to be a multiplayer mode for Last of Us Part 2, until it ended up being nothing, once it was all said and done. By the way, I just want to point out that I'm not saying Concord was the reason why Factions was canceled. Factions was canceled probably because deep down Sony felt like they couldn't monetize it the way that they wanted. Let's not forget that Factions was reportedly evaluated by Bungie. The summary of this is reported to have been that Factions wasn't strong enough to last in the long run as a live service and would require more work. Some more work later in Factions was canceled. True, Naughty Dog released a statement talking about how they felt the resources needed to make the game would take away from the ability to develop single-player titles, but I don't think that's the only reason. For instance, how does it take you working on something for 3 years before you decide that only now are we confident we can't make the game? What bugs me about this is that people were truly hyped for Factions. The idea of an ambitious, new iteration on the original mode from the first game had people anxious to see what it would look like, but Sony and Naughty Dog closed up shop before anybody could even get their hands on it and experience it for themselves. I guess Sony and Naughty Dog just didn't see the sustainability in Factions. It's a shame. Speaking of evaluating sustainability, I ask you all, who looked at Concord and evaluated this game? Seriously, who at Sony said, this is the game we should make a pillar of our live service lineup? Let's not forget that Sony saw this game and bought the studio while they were working on it. You'd have to be some kind of crazy to look at the hype, the anticipation circling The Last of Us Factions, and decide to end development after teasing the game for like 2 years. Then, in the same lifetime, you're the company who buys Firewalk Studios and their generic hero shooter Concord to establish it as a staple live service title under the PlayStation branding? What world do we live in anymore? I'm not trying to hate on Concord or its studio. I can't even imagine what it must feel like to work on something so long only for it to flop so badly and end up as the butt of the joke for millions of people looking onward. Not to mention, Concord is now headlining multiple news cycles longer than the life of the game. It can't be easy. It probably feels gut-punching. Unfortunately, this is how the market works. Some stuff hits, some stuff doesn't work at all. It just seems poetically ironic that people want Factions and it gets shut down before it even gets off the ground, while Sony goes all in on a game like Concord and it immediately flops. You can't make this stuff up. In any case, Concord's failure will serve as another example of just how hostile the live service market has become. It's not good enough to put a multiplayer game out and expect people to buy it. You have to find the added element which sets your game apart from every other game on the market. With free-to-play titles all over the place, the market can be suffocating for newcomers who don't bring originality. Unfortunately, this is the new reality developers will continue to face moving forward. While Factions' legacy is one of potential and missed opportunity, Concord's legacy will be one of poor planning and lackluster vision. Without something for players to cling to over the competitors, Concord drifts away in a galactic abyss of fallen stars. With that, we've come to the end of the video. Why don't you let me know what you all think in the comment section down below. I thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing, clicking the like button, and hitting that little bell for notifications so you don't miss out on any new videos as soon as they drop. Thanks again, and have yourself a great day.